Okay, good morning everyone. So today we are going to continue with the enterprise risk management. Okay, so let me just share the SLM material. Okay. So yesterday we have seen the enterprise risk management, why it is used for, who are the peoples who are involved in the enterprise risk management. So today we are going to study some of the internal controls. So we are going to like study what are the parts are there. Okay, internal control like and in the COSO model, what are the internal responsibilities are there in the ERM. So we are first finding some of them are incorporated here, but then later are not mentioned. So whatever things are there, we'll study that one only. So first is the roles and the responsibility. So yesterday we have discussed that in the enterprise risk management, before the company takes up any project, they have a meeting, right? So they have a meeting where the board of members, CEO, management, directors, like IT professionals, CIO. So all these peoples are involved in the meeting to identify the risk and assess the risk, right? So it is not so. You should not have the idea that the junior level staffs, maybe the coders, testers, and other employees are not involved, are not required in this enterprise risk management. Always remember that every individual in the organization, every individual working in the organization have a role to play in the enterprise risk management. Okay, someone will decide the strategic decision. Someone will make the decision strategies, how they can avoid the risk or what risk they should take. But it's these are the part of the top management. But someone needs to implement it, right? So this implementation will be taken place, will be taking place with the help of the lower level staffs or the normal every individuals of the um, organization. So that is why it is said that every individuals will be involved in the ERM process. Okay, so someone will be the risk owner. Okay, someone will be the risk assessor, or but the person who is totally accountable for the risk is the CEO. So everything, because he has a strategy for like to identify or like to strategize the risk, and someone who should be reported to is the CEO, obviously by following the hierarchy. Next is achievement of objectives. So whenever we open an organization, when we have an organization, any organization, we must first have an objective, right? And apart from the risk, we don't think of the risk, but apart from the risk, we have to identify the objective for the organization. Why are you like even in life also we do have an objective, right? You people are now pursuing MCA. Why are you pursuing MCA? So obviously you have some objective that you want to reach a certain level, you want to get a good IT job maybe, or like earn in good salary. So all these things have the objective. So we don't analyze the risk in that case, like from the early stage. That comes in between. We once we set the objective, then we identify the risk associated with it. So the top management, they defines the strategic plan for the organization with set of objectives to be achieved. So ultimately that it's the organization's top management, right, who set up the like objectives for the organization. So they once they also make sure they have a action plan to achieve those objectives. So the ERM is aimed to achieve the objectives, okay, with the help of four categories. The four categories are strategic, operation, reporting, and compliance. So that organization is able to the uh, achieve the objectives of its objective using the ERM. So and how the ERM helps it in this using these four categories, that is strategic, operation, reporting, and compliance. Out of which you can say this reporting and compliance are the internal controls, and this strategic and operation depends on the external part. So how this strategy and operations totally depend on the real world situations. Okay, it totally varies depending on the market structure. Your strategy will vary, and similarly the operations, the actions you take will depend on the strategies, right? But you have the reporting and compliance, that will be the internal. So it totally It's same for like within the perspective of the organization itself. So you can see ERM can be expected to provide a great degree of assurance for the achievement of this objective. Okay, but you cannot say for the strategic and operations, because this falls under the external factors. Okay, so external factors, so it can be anything, when maybe any political issues. So based on that, suppose you can think due to this pandemic also, many of the organizations, uh, we never thought that we will be teaching online, right? So even our organization, we moved to the online classes. So this kind of strategies totally depend upon the external factors. So this pandemic was also again the external factors. So we are achieving the organization's main objective, like what is the purpose of this editu, or like any other organization, educational organization, to provide education, right? So we have in this pandemic, so that the students don't suffer, and everything is done in a smooth way. We, like everyone took this online teaching came into practice, right? Because before that, before this pandemic, hardly people thought that we can go for online classes, right? So that are the external factors. So ERM can provide a fair amount of assurance to the top management and the board, that are aware of how the organization is heading towards its achievements. Okay, so using this in this pandemic, the online classes are going on, right? We are, everything is reviewing. So the top management, so why we are recording the videos, why we are uploading it, so the top managements can monitor it. Okay, so that they are aware of it. Even we are giving the attendance in over here also, and in the Google Drive also, in the iNurture part also, so that they can monitor it, and they are aware, okay, whatever decision they took for the online classes is going on a proper way. Okay, so but obviously there are some loopholes here also in the online teaching, though. Like the classroom teaching, as you know, the physical classroom, the teachers get the idea, so how much the students are understanding, whether they're attentive or not. But over online, it is not a like we don't get a the 100% satisfaction that you people are understanding the things, right? And sometimes a net issue also plays an important role. So some of you cannot also reply because of the net issue, internet does not work, and someone who stays in for people staying in Meghalaya, in the remote areas of Meghalaya, they really face problem joining the classes. Okay, even the people who have GeoNet also, they can face problems also. So same thing. So that is why it cannot give 100% assurance, but yes, just a fair amount of assurance can be given. Next, coming to the components of enterprise risk management. So there are for this 8 components are closely related are there. So first is the internal environment. So you basically the internal environment. So for our organization, so it will totally vary upon organization to organization. So it depends upon the like culture of the organization, then risk philosophy, how do it like take the risk, then its take on ethics. So don't you think the people, when the educational institutions, they went for the online classes, there was a risk associated with it too? Okay, so nowadays the first year students, as you know, that their classes has also started. You people were already aware of the systems, you know the teachers, you know the management somehow. But the first year students, they really had problem to cope up, right? They were asked to, like, without knowing, they were asked to install the Cisco WebEx app, then whether they will join or not, because they are new to the organization, they are new to the this education process. So we don't know each other. So that was a risk, whether students will take admission to that course or not in this pandemic. So all this were the risk associated. So how the organization handles this kind of risk is also totally varies from organization to organization. So let me tell you that this ethics and integrity. So whatever ethics or I'm talking about the organizations, like if you take from industry, from IT industries also. So like if you work in Amazon, you will get separate environment. If you work in Flipkart, you will get separate environment. I am working in Editive, I'm getting separate environment. Like when I used to work in Don Bosco also, then also I used to get separate environment, and KCC also I used to get separate environment. So everywhere the culture is different. Okay, so in when I was in the previous institution, when I was in working in the previous institution, so the classes were like we weren't allowed to use the PPTs. Okay, so we were not allowed to use any ICT. Okay, so like IoT applications, we were not allowed to use. We were only allowed to use the blackboard. So this is not the same case when I used to work in Don Bosco. So people used to like motivate the teachers to use that this technology means. So everyone used to go for projectors. We had the projectors in each and every room in classroom, so that classes can be carried on smoothly. So this also things varies from organization to organization. Next is objective setting. So you have, like, before identify the threats to achieve the objectives, the objectives should exist. So obviously when you are running an organization, you are planning to start an organization, it's mandatory that you have an objective in place. So therefore this ERM will ensure that there is a process to set the organization's objective, and it is lined with the organization's vision. Okay, so this vision and objectives. So objectives, like what are the objectives, like one of the objectives, like in the next 5 years, in which position you want to see yourself, what is the so all these things you need to achieve, so that can be achieved within a short period of time, and that is why in ERM helps in that process. Next is event identification. So these are basically incidents, either internal or external, that can affect the achievement of the organization's objectives. So you can see only, so what are the external process. External process can be, now you see the world was running on smoothly, every industry was working properly, but due to this pandemic, suddenly the pandemic, company has to procure lots of losses, right? You have heard that like many people lost their job during the lockdown, or in the entire pandemic. So it was an external source, no one was aware of it, that such kind of situation can come in, right? But suddenly it happened. Okay, so this, you have to identify the situation. Even though some of the people they lost their jobs in some organizations, even people got like the people worked remotely and they got bonuses for that. Even I think you people have, if you have read the news, you have got that Accenture, TCS, so, or Infosys. These people, what they did, since they like the people working more effectively, because before people used to work 9 to 5, or like some 9 to 7 something, but during this lockdown, for the people, for working people, so for us also, that time extended. So any time of the day, because since we were working from home, so it was, even they gave us work at 9 p.m. at night or at 10 p.m. at night, we have to do it. So the output of the employees increased. So that is why they thought of giving bonuses to the companies. Okay, so even internal threats also exist. So that is why you have to identify. Internal threats can be anything, that if the technology you are currently using and the resources you have are not well equipped with it, or like not well experienced, they have no idea. So that is again that is again a risk, you can say. And also that won't be helpful in achieving the uh, objective you have. And also if the resources leaves, okay, the employee sustainability is not there, then also there is a threat. So these kinds of internal threats are there, internal like external threat, which like refrain you from achieving the objectives of the organization. Okay, so next you have to access the risk. So you have, once you have identified the risk here, so I told you, right, internal risk, you suppose you take that the employee, you hired the employees who are not equipped with the technology that your company is you're using, right? So in that come, you have to find the impact of it. So how much like impact it can have in your project or in the organization, so that how much badly it can affect, or whether you can train it or not. So if someone is not aware of the technology, he can be trained, right? So you have to analyze the risk, whether he can be trained. So likelihood and their impact. So what can be the impact of it? Next is response. So accordingly, you once you have analyzed the risk, you can decide whether you can take the risk or you can want to avoid the risk. Okay, so if someone who have like worked in other technologies, like now adopting to the new technology will hardly take him like 1 week. Okay, so he can learn it. In the companies it happens, some people works in different projects, later when he switch to other companies, they get trained in within 1 week. They will, but obviously self learning will be there. Okay, no one will train you once you're experienced, so you will learn in 1 week and then you can just employ. So that kind of thing. Or someone, but if you hire a fresher, you cannot expect that kind of like skills from a fresher. Okay, because the one who is experienced may learn the skill within 1 week, because he knows the like technologies, right? Other technologies is aware of. But someone who's a fresher, who don't know, like who have just passed out from the college, so probably would not be a good example of hiring him. Then in that case, it's uh, it's like try to don't put the first train the person. So training also needs some amount of, because money, right? So you can just decide whether you want to like accept the risk, avoid the risk, or reduce the risk, right? Or you want to transfer it. So the management can choose the response based on their risk impact and risk appetite. So depending upon the risk, the manager will take the decision. Next is control activities. So basically, how do you do the risk treatment? If there is a risk, so how will you treat the risk? So the ERM has policies and procedures to ensure that the risk treatment and controlling activities are implemented and monitored properly. What are the policies or procedures you decide? It comes under this control activities. Next is information and communications. So all the relevant information. So we like when we from the earlier classes only, we had decided, so your stakeholders, that means the persons who have interest in the organization, should be well informed about what is happening in the organization. So the stakeholders can be any top management like the CEO, or like some other members from the legal advisors, someone who is so all these peoples like who have interest in the organization. So all they must be well aware of, so what is happening in the organization from the very beginning. So for that purpose, scheduled meeting has held to inform that these are the actions and policies that has been taken place, or that we are deciding to take. So everything, so that any risk and opportunities are highlighted, so that appropriate action also can be taken. Okay, so they get a better understanding of it. Next is monitoring. So once you have like applied everything, so someone needs to monitor it, right? So the complete ERM cycle is continuously measured and tracked. So this needs is monitored, right? Who are doing, which process has been following, what policies are being done, and who is doing what. So everything is monitored. Probably will have studied some kind of metrics, right? With the cost analysis, so all this, the graph diagrams. So all these things are applied here. So the measurements are analyzed, and any metric that divides more than acceptable. Okay, so this were the 8 components were there in the ERM process. Now this ERM, you can see it's not a sequential process. Okay, it's an iterative process. So it's not required that after one process completes, then only it will go to the other process. It can happen that after monitoring, it will be like it found some error, so it will again keep on monitoring. So it's basically iteration in itself also. Okay, so it's not as all these steps will be followed sequentially. Okay, so it's an iterative. It keeps on repeating itself. Okay, so that is after like risk identification is done, still and a risk is analyzed, and then response you give response to the risk, and still you find risk, so you can find the risk again. So it's an iterative that keeps on cycling, right? It keeps on moving. So that is why we said the iterative process. Next, coming to the relationship of ERM components and objectives. So you can see this diagram. It is a four-way diagram. So you can see it's a three-dimensional. It's a cube diagram you have. Here you can find the strategic operations, reporting, compliance. Here the objectives, 8 objectives are there, of components are there. Okay. So you can see here the 4 types of objectives shown. Okay, you have seen the objectives over here. Just now I told you. Okay, just yeah. Strategic operation, reporting, compliance, and 8 components are there. You just now we have studied internal environment, objective setting, event identification, risk assessment, risk response, control activities, information communication, and monitoring. So, and these things, okay, this is three-dimensional diagram. So you can either like concentrate on the whole enterprise or on a specific objectives, okay, or one particular component, or just a single objective or a single component. So you have this effectiveness. What is the like advantage of it? So you can see that the ERM is said to be effective if each of the component in the ERM are present and are performing effectively. So each of the 8 components will not be functioning the same way in all the entities. So you can see these 8 components are there. So it will be functioning differently in all the activities. So it will not be like it will be separate for each organizations. Okay. Last one is the disadvantages or limitations we can say. So limitations are not disadvantages only. So the main limitation of the ERM is the unprecedented human error of the manual mistake. So that means it cannot take into account the manual mistake that has been made by human. So that means the management has the veto power on the risk management and risk treatment options. But then to use this veto, the management should have to be certain in achieving the organization's objective. Okay. So these are the limitation and effectiveness of this ERM. Now tell me if any point is not clear. Okay, since no one, okay, just let me take the attendance then. So we are like almost towards the end of this syllabus. So we never know like when your first internal will be. Still be prepared. I won't give you the entire syllabus, but start studying. Okay. So thank you everyone. So you all can leave now.
Thank you, ma'am.